At 82, I've learned a lot about life. I've buried friends. I've watched the world reshape itself. I've learned how to forgive slowly, how to grieve deeply, and how to sit in silence without needing to feel it. But there's one decision I deeply regret: moving into a nursing home. At the time, it seemed like the right choice. My family encouraged it. You'll be safe, they said. Everything will be easier. And after a few too many dizzy mornings and a near fall in the kitchen, I started to believe them. So I said yes. Yes to safety. Yes to structure. Yes to a place where I'd never have to be alone. But no one tells you how loud safety can be when it comes wrapped in silence. No one tells you that structure, once comforting, can become a cage. No one tells you that being surrounded isn't the same as being seen. If you're thinking about a nursing home, whether for yourself or someone you love, please don't decide before hearing these 6 truths I learned the hard way. Because once you step into this life, stepping out again isn't as easy as it sounds. Some of these may surprise you. Some may hurt. But they might just save you from a mistake I live with every morning. It started with a signature, just one form. One morning, one polite meeting with my daughter and a bright young intake nurse with glossy nails and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're so glad you're here, Margaret," she said, placing a welcome folder in my lap like it was a gift. No one saw my hands tremble when I took it. No one heard what I didn't say, that I was scared, that I wasn't ready, that I wanted just one more summer in my garden, one more winter morning with a blanket and a book and no one telling me when to eat. The first night wasn't bad. The room was clean. The sheets were stiff but warm. The nurse was kind. But on the second night, when the newness faded and the echoes began, I felt it, the shift. My window didn't open. For safety, they said, I had to ask to go for a walk. My meals came on a tray, always on time, always bland, always the same. Every kindness I received felt like a transaction, and every freedom I once took for granted, gone, like I had exchanged my life for a list of checkboxes. They said, "You'll be safe here," and I was safe from stares, safe from spilled tea, safe from solitude. But no one told me I might need to be saved from the weight of waiting all day just to feel alive. By the end of week 1, I had learned how to smile without meaning it. By the end of week 2, I had learned the names of my caretakers, but they still call me honey or sweetheart. And by week 3, I had forgotten the last time someone looked me in the eyes and asked, "What do you want to do today?" If you're still at home right now, listen closely. Home isn't just where your things are. It's where your decisions live. It's where you choose whether to eat soup or toast for lunch. Where you decide if the music's too loud or not loud enough. Where you stand at your own window, on your own time, and let the light fall across your face without asking permission. I left all of that behind because I was told it was safer. But safety can be deceiving. The truth is, safety isn't peace. Peace is earned. It grows where dignity lives. And in here, peace is replaced with schedules, with plastic utensils, with bingo games and communal bathrooms. I don't say this with bitterness. I say it with hope that maybe my voice can help someone else keep what I lost too quickly. You may be wondering, but isn't a nursing home better than being alone? And here's what I'll say. Being alone and being lonely aren't the same. I was alone sometimes. Yes, but I was never anonymous. Now, I sit in a room full of people and feel more invisible than I ever did on my worst day at home. And so, before I share the 6 truths that no brochure will ever print, let me ask you a question I wish someone had asked me. Are you choosing safety, or are you trading something sacred for convenience wrapped in kindness? Because that's what I did, and the regret didn't come like a slap. It came like a slow unraveling. The moment I realized my calendar was no longer mine. The moment I asked for a different suit and was told, that's not today's option. The moment I found myself sitting for hours just waiting, for pills, for lunch, for anything that felt like living. This is not a story of resentment. It's a story of revelation. Because now, looking back, I can see it so clearly. I didn't just move rooms. I moved out of my own rhythm. And once you lose your rhythm, you begin to lose your voice. And once you lose your voice, it becomes harder to remember who you were before. 6 truths. That's what I'm about to give you, not to frighten you, but to prepare you. Because every senior deserves more than quiet rooms and polite supervision. We deserve autonomy. We deserve to matter. We deserve to choose. So stay with me, because the first truth, the one I felt before I even had the words for it, is the one no one warned me about. It starts the moment your day is no longer your own, and it doesn't end with lights out. It ends when you realize you've stopped asking for anything, because asking feels like too much trouble. Regret number 1. I lost my independence. You don't feel it all at once. It's not like a door slamming shut. It's more like a slow fade, an erasure so gradual you barely notice it's happening. Until one morning, you wake up and realize nothing you do is really your decision anymore. Before the move, my days belonged to me. I chose when to wake up, how strong to make my coffee, what book to read in which chair. I could decide to take a walk or stay in my bathrobe until noon. I could burn the toast and start over without anyone watching, judging, or correcting. But inside the nursing home, freedom gets broken down into manageable pieces and handed back to you only if it fits the routine. The first time I felt it was breakfast. Time to eat, Margaret, the aide said gently. It was 7:30 a.m. I wasn't hungry, but that didn't matter. The meal was ready, the tray was warm, and the schedule didn't ask how I felt. So I ate dry scrambled eggs and lukewarm oatmeal because it was easier than saying no. That became a pattern, choosing silence over resistance. Because resistance comes at a cost. You become difficult. And no one wants to be labeled that, not when you already feel like a guest in your own skin. The second time was the walk. I asked if I could step outside just for some fresh air. The nurse checked her watch. Can it wait an hour? We're a little short-staffed. I said yes. What else could I do? That hour never came. Neither did the walk. It's a subtle thing, how they take over. It begins with helpfulness. We'll do that for you. We've got it. You don't need to worry. At first, it feels kind. Then it feels condescending. Eventually, it feels like erasure. I used to cook, not gourmet but real food. My hands knew how to season by smell, how to tell when onions were done, just by listening to pan. In here, meals arrive on trays with domed plastic lids. No choice, no smell, no mess, no joy. The worst day was when they changed my clothes without asking. I'd spilled some tea, just a little on my shirt. I could have handled it myself. But the aide said, "Let's get you into something fresh." And before I could reply, she was already pulling open the drawer. And I stood there, arms limp, feeling like a child. Not because she was unkind, but because I hadn't chosen. That's when it hit me. I hadn't made a single decision that day. Not what to eat, not where to sit, not even what to wear. I had become passive in my own existence. And the scary part? It's easy to let that happen. It's easy to let others decide for you when they're doing it with a smile. It's easy to trade independence for convenience when you're tired. But the cost adds up slowly, quietly, until you stop asking, until you start believing that you shouldn't. I remember watching a woman named Evelyn cry in a hallway. No one saw her. She wasn't sobbing, just quiet tears as she stared at the closed door of her room. Later, I learned her favorite chair had been moved. Staff had thought it made the room easier to clean. She hadn't been told. And something inside her broke. Because it wasn't about the chair. It was about not being consulted. About being managed instead of respected. You think losing independence is about big things. Driving, paying bills, climbing stairs. But it's not. It's about little things. The way you fold your laundry. The cup you drink your tea from. The time you go to sleep. I used to light a candle every evening. Lavender. Just a small ritual. It helped me mark the end of the day. Can't do that here. Fire hazard, they said. So now I sit in a room that never smells like home. I am not ungrateful. I know many of the staff care. They work hard. But the system isn't built for individuality. It's built for efficiency. And efficiency rarely leaves room for dignity. So here's what I want you to know. When you lose the right to make choices, small, daily, human choices, you lose a part of your soul's rhythm. And it's hard to dance again once the beat is gone. Regret number 1 wasn't about losing my health. It was about losing my say. The freedom to say yes, or no, or not yet. And when your days are decided for you, you start to disappear from them. So ask yourself before you make this choice. Can I live without deciding what socks I wear today? Can I live with asking permission to take a walk? Can I live in a place where autonomy is a luxury? If the answer is no, fight for that no while you still can. Because once it's gone, getting it back takes more strength than most of us still have. But that's just the first truth. There's another regret that came later, when I didn't expect. It wasn't about choices. It was about being seen, and how it feels when you're not. That night, I wrote something down on a scrap of paper from my lunch tray. It said, "I miss choosing my own loneliness." Strange, isn't it? But there's something noble about solitude when you've chosen it. Something strong about boredom when it belongs to you. Here, even that is handed out, curated, packaged. You don't feel alone because the room is empty. You feel alone because everything you do is watched, timed, and approved. And somewhere along the way, the you that used to decide starts to dissolve. I don't want pity, but I want people to understand this. Independence isn't just about mobility or memory. It's about agency. The human need to say, "This is my life. This is how I will live it." Even if it's slower, even if it's messier, even if it's imperfect, that kind of life still belongs to you. But in here, nothing belongs to you, not even the pacing of your own afternoon. So please, protect your independence like it's sacred. Because once you give it away, even gently, even with good reason, you'll start to forget how it ever felt to own your time. And when you forget how freedom felt, it becomes harder to ask for it again, even when your heart still knows it's missing. Especially then. Regret number 2, I became invisible. Not all at once. Not like flipping a switch. It was slower than that. Softer, like a fog that rolls in without warning. Until one day, you realize the world has stopped looking directly at you. When I first moved in, there were welcome smiles. A few polite introductions. But after that first week, I became part of the furniture. Not disliked, not mistreated, just unremarked. And for someone who's lived a whole life, who's raised children, buried parents, fought quiet battles, and celebrated quiet victories, being treated as background noise is a wound I never expected. Let me give you an example. My daughter used to call me every evening. We'd talk for 15 minutes, nothing grand. The weather, the children, a memory that floated up from nowhere. The first week I was here, she called daily. The second week, every other day. By week 3, silence. I don't blame her. Life moves. Children have their own worries. Schedules tighten. The guilt makes them avoid you, not out of malice, but out of shame. Still, the silence stings the same. One day, a staff member walked into my room and asked, "Where's Margaret?" I looked up. "I am Margaret." She smiled embarrassed and said, "Oh, right. Sorry, Han." It was nothing, really, but it felt like everything. When your name stops belonging to your face, it's a sign the world has begun to forget who you are. Even other residents start to fade. You nod at each other in the hallways. Exchange a few weather comments in the lounge. But no one really talks. Not about real things. Not about who they were before these walls. It's like we're all ghosts rehearsing the same day. There's a man here named Joseph. He used to be a jazz pianist. Played with a trio in the 70s. Now, he sits in a wheelchair by the window and hums to himself. No one knows what he's humming. No one asks. But I did. One afternoon I said, "That's Duke Ellington, isn't it?" He turned to me like I'd spoken a forgotten language. His eyes lit up just for a second. Then he nodded. "In a sentimental mood," he whispered. We sat in silence for 20 minutes. And in that silence, I saw him again. Not the man in the chair, but the man behind the music. We all want to be seen. Even if just once a day. Even if just for who we used to be. Because memory fades fast in here, not just from our minds, but from other people's eyes. I used to wear a green scarf every Thursday. It was a silly tradition. I'd started it back home because it matched the plant that sat in my kitchen. Here, I still wore it. But one day a nurse asked, "Is that a new scarf?" It wasn't. I'd worn it 4 Thursdays in a row. No one had noticed. That's when I knew I wasn't being seen. I was being glanced at, checked on, managed, but not truly noticed. Being invisible doesn't mean no one is around you. It means your presence doesn't change the room. It means no one adjusts their voice, their energy, their plans because you walked in. And once you become invisible, you start to question if you were ever solid to begin with. I miss being part of things, of dinners where my opinion mattered, of afternoons where someone asked what I thought, of moments where my presence shifted the conversation. Here, I am one of many. And sometimes it feels like I am one of none. I wish someone had told me that this would happen, that being surrounded doesn't guarantee connection, that a crowded dining room can still be the loneliest place on earth, that silence in your own home is different than silence here, because at home, silence meant peace. Here, it means absence of attention, of engagement, of matching. Please, if you're considering this path, ask yourself this. What keeps you feeling real? Is it your name on the mailbox? The neighbor who waves each morning? The cashier who knows your favorite tea? Because once you leave that behind, it doesn't follow you here. I thought being invisible would feel like being ignored, but it feels more like being slowly erased, one forgettable day at a time. Sometimes I wonder, if I disappeared tomorrow, how long before anyone noticed? That's a cruel question. But here's a crueler answer. Longer than you think. You don't need applause. You don't need grand gestures. But you need witnesses. You need people who still remember what makes you laugh, what makes you angry, what you love, what you fear. Without those reflections, your soul starts to dim, and your story becomes static. I started writing little notes to myself, just reminders. You love lemon tea. Bird song in the morning still lifts your chest. You matter, because if the world forgets, I won't, not yet. Regret number 2 was a realization that I had stopped being part of someone's day, that I had become a task to complete, a name on a chart, a room number, a schedule slot. And it hurt more than I thought it would, because I didn't need the whole world to remember me. I just needed someone, one person, to say, "There you are, I see you." But here, no one says that. So I whispered to myself, softly, "I see you, Margaret." And for now, that has to be enough. But invisibility wasn't the end. It was just a space where another loss began, not of attention, but of purpose. And that might be the hardest truth of all. That night, I stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, not searching for youth, not mourning wrinkles, but just hoping to feel real again. So I touched the glass, as if the reflection needed reassurance. And I whispered again, "You are here. You are still here." And maybe someday someone else will say it too. Regret number 3. I lost my purpose. It sounds dramatic, doesn't it? Like something you'd find in a novel or hear in a speech. But in truth, it was quiet. Purpose didn't leave me like a storm. It slipped away like a draft through a cracked window. One day, I simply didn't have anything to look forward to, nothing to finish, nothing to begin, and no one seemed to notice that I had stopped starting things. Back home, my days had a rhythm, not urgent, not glamorous, but mine. I had routines, mornings with tea and crossword puzzles, Tuesday calls with my friend Doris, Thursday soup deliveries to the church pantry. Even the smallest task held weight because I chose it. I had something to offer, something to prepare for, someone waiting, even if just for a bowl of lentils and a smile. But here, my calendar is printed by someone else. Group games, crafts, movies I've seen a dozen times, chairs in a circle, polite clapping, laughter that doesn't quite reach the eyes. And no one asks, "What do you miss doing?" They assume the past is enough to keep us full. But memory alone can't nourish you forever. I remember the moment it hit me. It was a Tuesday. I sat in the common room and realized I hadn't contributed anything to anyone in weeks. Not a meal cooked, not a chore done, not even a piece of advice given. No one needed my help. And if no one needs you, it's easy to forget what you're here for. There's a man here named George. He used to build cabinets, ran his own workshop for 40 years. Now, he spends his mornings staring at the television, remote balanced on his lap. One day, I asked him if he misses tools. He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Sometimes I dream about sanding wood. I wake up and my hands are moving, but there's nothing to shape." That stayed with me, because I knew exactly what he meant. We are made to shape things, to tend to something, to matter in a way that reaches outside of ourselves. When that stops, something in us goes quiet, and it doesn't always come back. There's a woman named Alice, an ex-teacher, sharp as ever. She tried to start a reading club here, printed flyers, asked staff for a quiet space, suggested the first book. No one came, not because they weren't interested, but because her proposal had to be reviewed. It never was. Now she reads alone in silence, not because she wants to, but because her initiative wasn't seen as necessary. Just nice. There's a difference, a heavy one. Purpose isn't about saving the world. It's about knowing there's a task today that belongs to you, a garden to tend, a letter to write, a loaf to bake, a child to advise, a hand to hold. Here, those things are optional, decorative, occasional, but not essential. And when you feel non-essential long enough, you start to agree. They think we want to rest, to relax, to do less. But no one asked. I didn't want rest. I wanted meaning, even if it came with effort. Every task they do for us to be kind is one more thing that makes us smaller, one more reason to stop trying. And when you stop trying, you stop becoming. That's what I regret. Not that I lost energy, but that I lost relevance. That I sit in this room with a brain still burning and no one asking it to spark. That I feel ideas rising in me and know where to put them. Sometimes I talk to myself, out loud, not because I'm confused, but because I need to hear someone talking to me with interest, even if it's my own voice. If you're considering a home like this, ask, will I still have something to do that matters? Will someone notice if I stop doing it? Will there be space for what I bring? Or only systems to manage where I fit? The days here are predictable. Predictability is not the enemy, but purposeless predictability, that's what empties people. That's what dims the eyes. Last week, I asked if I could lead the morning announcements. It's a simple thing. Just read the lunch menu, the weather, a birthday. They said no. Not necessary, they told me. But I think it is. Because hearing a familiar voice each morning, that's human. Letting someone contribute, that's purpose. And saying no to those things, that's how people wither. I tried again the next day. Brought in a poem. Short, gentle. Read it to a few who'd gathered near the window. A few nodded. One cried. I didn't ask for permission that time. I just shared. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Useful. Not because I solved a problem, but because I touched something. That's all we want, isn't it? To feel like what we do touches something outside of ourselves. Leaves a mark. Lights a lamp. Opens a breath. Regret number 3 is this. They took away my to-do list. And with it, they took away my becoming. But I'm not done. So I will keep finding little ways. Little offerings. Until someone says, that helped. That mattered. That was you. Because when no one needs your hands or your heart, you have to find a way to need them yourself. But there's more. More than purpose. More than invisibility. Because the next thing that happened, it didn't just take my spirit. It took my strength. That night, I dreamed I was planting again. Knees in soil. Fingernails full of earth. Sweat on my neck. Sunlight warming my back like a blessing. I woke up with tears dry on my cheeks. Not from sadness, but from longing. Because even the ache to contribute is proof we're still alive inside. And I will not surrender that proof. Not quietly. Not yet. Regret number 4. The body follows the mind. I used to think decline was mostly physical. Knees stiffening, eyes fading, hands less steady. I thought it would begin from the outside in, but I was wrong. It started in my thoughts, in the quiet moments when I stopped reaching, stopped stretching, stopped trying. And before long, my body followed that stillness like a shadow. In the first few weeks here, I noticed it. I walked less, not because I couldn't, but because the paths were too predictable. Corridors were the same linoleum, the same windows, the same silence. So I stopped exploring. My steps shortened. My balance wobbled. And no one said, let's go further. They said, let's take it easy. I used to garden. There was nothing easy about hauling soil or pruning rose bushes, but my back ached in a way that felt alive. Now, they wheel us out to the patio. We sit. We look at plants other people water, and we call that fresh air. One day I dropped my glasses, bent down to pick them up, and the room tilted. My heart raced. My knees trembled. That had never happened before. It wasn't a fall, but it was a warning. I told the nurse. She said, "You're just getting older, sweetheart." But that wasn't it. It was that I had stopped moving, stopped challenging, stopped owning my body. Because here, everything is done for you. Out of kindness, yes. But kindness can make you soft, can make you small, can make you still. I started noticing it in others. Joseph, who used to walk laps around the lounge, now asks for a wheelchair. Evelyn, who used to raise her own cup, now waits for help. They didn't get weaker overnight. They just stopped using what they had. Because here, effort is optional. And when effort becomes optional, eventually it becomes impossible. I once read that the brain shrinks when it isn't stimulated. Muscles too. So does courage and laughter and appetite. Stillness spreads. I began doing small stretches in my room. At first, my joints screamed, but after a few days, something shifted. Not in my body, but in my posture. I stood taller, felt steadier, remembered the shape of myself. But the system doesn't make it easy. They want you seated, easy to manage, easy to supervise. When I asked if I could help push chairs in the dining room, I was told, that's not necessary. Necessary? No, perhaps not. But it was movement. It was contribution. It was me taking part in the choreography of life. Decline doesn't knock on your door. It waits until you stop turning the handle yourself. Then it lets itself in. We think of frailty as inevitable, but I've learned it's also invited. By stillness, by permission, by ease. There's a woman here, Lucinda, used to be a dance teacher. She asked to lead morning stretches once a week. They said yes once. The next week, the room was booked for bingo. The week after, no one helped her set up chairs. By the 4th week, she gave up. Now she walks alone, humming. I join her when I can. Because walking with someone who remembers motion is better than sitting with those who've forgotten it. I am not what I used to be, but I am not nothing. Not yet. And every day I sit longer than I should, I become less than I am. If you're still home, still able to walk your own hallway, to climb your own porch steps, treasure it. Push yourself, even a little, because once you stop using a freedom, it becomes someone else's responsibility, and they won't return it to you freely. I lost strength because I stopped being asked to be strong, but I am learning to ask of myself again, little by little. Leg lifts at the sink, arm circles in the mirror, balancing on one foot while brushing my teeth, not for glory, not for muscle, but for memory, for presence, for resistance. Regret number 4 wasn't just about losing mobility. It was about surrendering effort. And when you give up on effort, effort gives up on you. There's a woman who lives across the hall. She once told me, I used to dance in heels. Now I can't stand without gripping the rail. She said it with a laugh, but her eyes looked past me, towards something she missed. I nodded, because I feel it too. They think we're fragile, so they wrap us in padding, in policies, in prescriptions, But no one asks us what we want to fight for. And sometimes the best protection is a reason to move. The mind slows when the body stops. And the body stops when the world stops asking it to move. That's the loop. And I'm trying to break it, one stretch at a time. Next week, I'm starting a walking group. Just 3 of us. We'll pace the hallway. Twice, maybe 3 times. It's not exercise. It's a rebellion against the soft grip of decline. Regret number 4, I let the world stop asking things of me. And in doing so, I forgot to ask things of myself. But I remember now. And so tomorrow I'll walk, and the next day, and the day after that, because the next regret, it lives in places even deeper than the body. It lives in privacy, in dignity, and in how quickly you lose both when no one's watching. Tonight, I'll sit on the edge of my bed and lift each leg 3 times before lying down. Not because anyone told me to, not because it's part of a program, but because it's mine. A ritual, a defiance, a whisper to my muscles that I still believe in them, that I still believe in me. Regret number 5, I lost my dignity. That word, dignity, it sounds noble, like something reserved for important moments. But let me tell you, dignity isn't about titles or ceremonies. It's about the simple, everyday choices that remind you you're still a person, not a procedure. And here, that sense of self gets peeled away one layer at a time. It started with the showers. You're assigned a bathing schedule. Mine is twice a week, Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Not when you want, not when you feel ready. When the chart says so, an aide knocks, opens the door before you answer, and says, "Okay, Margaret, shower time." I used to bathe in the evenings. Lavender soap, a soft towel warmed over the heater. No rush, no witness. Now, I undress under fluorescent lights while someone half my age chats about her weekend. It's not cruel. It's not careless. It's just indifferent. And that indifference is its own kind of wound. One day, the hot water ran cold. The aide apologized. "I'll let maintenance know," she said, handing me a towel as my body shivered. She didn't look at me when she said it, and that hurt more than the chill, because my body, my aging, loyal, lined body, deserved to be seen, not just handled. There's very little privacy here. Most of us share rooms. A curtain, if you're lucky, separates your space. No locks, no knocks. If someone forgets to close the door while you're changing, too bad. You stop complaining after a while. Because when your protests make no difference, they fade from your throat before they ever become sound. One night, I needed the toilet. I pressed the call button, waited, and waited. 13 minutes passed. When the aide arrived, she smiled and said, "Sorry, it's been a night." By then, I'd already gone. Not by choice, by necessity. She helped me clean up, gentle and quiet. But I saw my own eyes in the mirror, and I barely recognized them. Not because I had aged, but because I had been stripped of something I never thought I'd lose. Control. There's no dignity in waiting like that. Not for help, not for privacy, not for someone to treat you like more than an obligation. People don't talk about this. They say, you'll get the care you need. But care without dignity isn't comfort. It's containment. It's survival, not life. They give us adult diapers here. Standard issue. Even if we don't need them yet. Just in case, they say, it's easier for them. Easier than rushing in when you press the call light. Easier than asking. So you wear it. You submit. And a part of your identity goes silent. I miss closing a bathroom door behind me. I miss brushing my hair in front of a mirror that only I can see. I miss choosing my own underclothes. Here, even that's predetermined. Labeled, folded, stored in plastic drawers. Efficiency over individuality. A friend of mine here, her name was Ruth, once said, "They treat us like porcelain, but we were iron once." I never forgot that. We were strong, capable, private. Now we're processed, handled, filed under fragile. The loss of dignity is not dramatic. It's not one moment. It's the accumulation of small surrenders. The towel that doesn't cover enough. The hand that reaches without asking. The decision made without consent. And after a while, you stop correcting people. You stop insisting. You adapt because pride becomes too heavy to carry through routine humiliation. But here's the truth. We don't need pity. We need permission. To be human. To be private. To be left alone sometimes. To choose when and how we are seen. There's a difference between being cared for and being taken over. Between help and invasion. Between assistance and erasure. I write this now, not to shame the staff. Many of them are kind, overworked, underpaid, doing their best. But the system they work in, it forgets that every person here once had their own bathroom, their own schedule, their own door that clicked shut behind them. And those small things, those sacred things, are not small to us. They are everything. Regret number 5 came slowly, but it's deep, because once you lose dignity, it's hard to rebuild. You start questioning your worth, not out loud, but inside. I remember whispering to myself after that cold shower, "You are still you," just to believe it, just to make it real again. If you're reading this or hearing this, and you still have your privacy, guard it, because it's part of your identity, part of your soul. And when you give it up piece by piece, you begin to forget what self-respect felt like. I believe in care, but not care that flattens, not care that dehumanizes, not care that says it's easier for us this way, because what's easier for them may be what breaks you. The day I asked to shower at night, they said it wasn't allowed. No staff at that hour, they said. So I wash under bright lights. At 10 a.m., every Tuesday and Friday, like a box to tick, not a body to honor. That's what I regret. Not the aging, not the slowness, but the way this place treats the body as inconvenience, and the soul is irrelevant. But the next regret? It's more than the loss of freedom or dignity. It's about being stuck, not physically, but legally, emotionally, logistically. It's the regret I never saw coming, and the one I warn people about most. And the hardest part? Once you lose that dignity, few people ever try to return it to you. They assume you've accepted it. They assume silence means consent. But silence is sometimes just the sound of someone trying not to break. And I won't be silent about this anymore, because being seen doesn't stop at the eyes. It must extend to how we're handled, how we're spoken to, and how gently our choices are preserved. Regret number 6. I felt trapped, not behind bars, not in a prison, but in a system that was designed to care, yet ended up containing me. They tell you, you can leave anytime, but it's never that simple. You've sold a house. You've given away the car. You're on a wait list for assisted transport. Your medications are managed by someone else now. Your meals, your laundry, your schedule, all tied to this place. And suddenly, anytime feels like a myth, a word they use to soften the truth. I didn't realize the weight of it until the day I asked if I could visit an old friend, Doris. She just turned 83. We used to play cards every Thursday, back when I was still living in my own home. I asked if someone could drive me, if I could go for just one afternoon. The answer? We'll need to get approval. Forms, paperwork, weeks of waiting. They never said no, but they never said yes. So time passed, and Doris passed. They didn't mean to trap me. No one said, "You can't go." They just didn't make it easy. And when something isn't easy at this age, it often doesn't happen. I've seen others try. One man, Leonard, tried to transfer to a different facility, closer to his son. He filled out forms, asked weekly. 6 months later, he was still here, still asking, still waiting, still alone. There's a kind of sadness that settles in when you realize you're not staying because you want to, but because there's nowhere else to go. You feel it in your bones, in the way you stop planning, in the way you stop imagining other options, because this is it. This is the last address. We all talk about independence as a value, but freedom? Freedom is different. Freedom is the ability to change your mind, to change your space, to go, to stay, to choose. And when that's gone, even if the room is warm, Even if the food is good, you feel caged. Gently, permanently. The staff here are kind. They smile. They check in. But they rotate. They shift. The people I confide in today are gone next week. Continuity disappears. Familiarity dies in transition. So you build fewer connections. You hold your words back. Because if everything is temporary, why share the permanent parts of yourself? I remember once standing at the lobby door during visiting hours, just watching, families arriving, then leaving. I realized I hadn't stepped outside in over 3 weeks, not because I couldn't, but because no one asked if I wanted to, and I'd stopped asking to. That's how it happens. Not all at once. Freedom isn't taken. It's forgotten. And the worst part, you participate in that forgetting because it's easier than struggling, easier than pushing, easier than being told no again. The structure here is so complete, so efficient, that it quietly replaces a need for choice. It doesn't punish you. It simply removes the possibility. And that, my friend, is a different kind of prison. When I look out my window, I can see the sidewalk that curves around the garden. I imagine myself walking it. Just once. Just alone. No escort. No form to fill out. Just me, my breath, the sound of leaves under my feet. But here, that requires permission. And permission is a form of control. I once asked if I could take my meals in my room. Just for a while. They said, "We encourage socialization." I said, "But I need quiet today." They said, "That's not the policy." It's not cruel, but it's not care. It's maintenance. It's preservation. It's making sure I'm managed, not making sure I'm free. I miss making my own bad decisions. Eating breakfast at noon. Staying up too late. Sitting outside in the cold just because I like the sting of winter on my cheeks. You give up danger in here, but you also give up choice. And without choice, what is a person? A passenger? A pet? A painting hung in the corner of a system someone else designed? This is what I regret most. That I believed care would include freedom. But the truth? The more dependent you are, the more trapped you can become. Even if the people are kind. Even if the walls are painted warm colors. Even if there's a courtyard and a calendar full of activities. If you can't say no, if you can't say, "I'd rather not," then you are not free. I don't say this lightly. I know not everyone has the option to stay home. But if you do, please count the cost. Because freedom doesn't leave loudly. It slips away in the space between "I'd like to" and "that's not allowed." And by the time you notice, it's already gone. Tomorrow, I'll ask again to visit Doris' grave. They'll say they'll check the van schedule. I'll say thank you. Then I'll go back to my room. And I'll wait. But that's not the end of my story. Because regret doesn't have to mean defeat. There's still one more truth I've learned here. And maybe, just maybe, it's the one worth holding on to. Because I've started writing letters again. One each week. Not to change the system. Not to demand anything. Just to remind myself that my words still have weight. That even if I'm here, and even if I feel caged, I can still reach out through paper. Still leave something behind that wasn't scheduled, sanitized, or supervised. And that feels like freedom, however small. And maybe that's what freedom becomes in the end. Not the right to leave, but the right to leave a mark, even from inside the walls. So I'll keep writing. And with each word, I'll remind myself, I still exist. I've told you 6 hard truths. They weren't easy to say. They're harder to live. But I didn't come here just to speak of regret. Because even in a place like this, even inside the shell of routines and policies and soft voice management, there is still something worth holding on to. Hope. It doesn't arrive with fanfare. It doesn't knock loud. It grows in cracks. Small ones. The space between silence and song. Between routine and rebellion. There's a new resident here. His name is Benjamin. 81. He arrived with a suitcase and a harmonica. I heard it the second night. Soft, hesitant notes down the hallway. I followed the sound. He was playing by the window. Not for anyone. Just for himself. I didn't say a word. Just sat near. And when he finished, He looked at me and smiled. Didn't think anyone remembered this tune. I said, I didn't, but I remembered something in me when I heard it. And that was enough. That's how it begins. Tiny sparks. You find them when you stop looking only for what's gone and start noticing what remains. I've started walking again, not because it fixes everything, but because movement feels like music now. Even slow steps carry rhythm. They remind me of mornings I thought I'd never feel again. Lucinda joined me last Thursday. She doesn't talk much anymore, but we walk side by side for 12 minutes. 12 quiet, holy minutes. Sometimes hope doesn't speak. It just shows up in a footfall, a glance, a shared pace. I'm learning to ask again, to knock on doors, even if I expect them not to open. Because every time I ask and someone says yes, I remember who I used to be and who I still am beneath the bathrobe and pill cups and Tuesday oatmeal. I'm writing again. Letters, notes, memories. To no one, sometimes. To everyone, really. I slip them under doors. Leave them in books. A staff member found one last week. She knocked gently and said, I read what you wrote. It made me call my dad. She didn't say more. She didn't have to. Purpose didn't return with a parade. It came back like breath, like the feeling in your fingers after they've gone numb. I started a ritual again. Sunday tea at 3 p.m. I set a table for 2. Sometimes someone joins me. Sometimes they don't. But the cup across from mine is never empty. It's filled with memory, with invitation, with readiness. There's a boy who visits his grandmother here, 12 years old. Curious eyes, fidgety hands. He started sitting with me last month. I told him stories about my first typewriter, about the war, about the smell of tomatoes on a summer afternoon in 1953. Last week, he asked if he could record me with his phone. I asked why. He said, so when you're not here anymore, I can still hear how you said things. I said yes, then cried when he left, not from sadness, but from being wanted. Hope is not loud. It's not bold. It's not always easy to find, but it's always worth reaching for. It comes in, the sound of a harmonica, the quiet warmth of Sunday tea, a stretch in the hallway, a question answered gently, a note that makes someone pick up the phone. They may have taken my freedom, my choices, my rhythms, but they didn't take my ability to give. And giving, quietly, simply, sincerely, is how I reclaim space. I'm not naive. This place will not change overnight. The policies will stay. The structure will hold. But within these walls, small rebellions bloom. And that's how change begins. With one person remembering a song, another daring to walk, another leaving a note, a boy asking a question, a nurse hearing more than just a request, a woman lighting a candle, only in memory but lighting it still. Regret does not cancel hope. It prepares it. It clears the space, makes room for the next thing. So I no longer wait for the system to give me meaning. I bring it with me, in my stories, in my steps, in my rituals, in my stubbornness. This block isn't about a warning. It's about a possibility that even here, especially here, we can still matter, still move, still ignite. And maybe that's the real lesson, that we are not done, not until the last breath. And even then, if we've lived loudly enough in the quiet, we'll echo. Sometimes I think of my husband. He passed before I came here. But I imagine what he would say if he saw me now. Not out of pity, not to save me, but maybe just to sit beside me in the garden and say, you're still here. I see you. That thought carries me on the slow days. The days when I feel the fog pressing in again. When the hours stretch too long and the sounds around me are only trays clinking and shoes squeaking down linoleum halls. I keep a photograph on my nightstand. It's a candid shot. I'm laughing. I look free. I stare at it sometimes. Not because I want to be her again, but because I want to remember she never truly left. She's quieter now, but still here, still inside, still able to smile without asking permission. They say time softens everything. But I think time also reveals what never broke. My voice, my kindness, my stubborn fire. I write that in my journal. Things that survived, laughter, memory, resistance. It's not a long list, but it's mine, and I will protect it with whatever energy I have left. The boy, his name is Elijah, came again yesterday. He asked if I'd ever been afraid. I said yes, all the time, but I did the thing anyway. He nodded like he understood, and maybe he does, because the young aren't as far from us as they think, and we aren't as far from them as they assume. Hope is not in grand plans anymore. It's in small moments of being remembered, being asked, being heard, being smiled at because someone genuinely wanted to see you that day, not because they had to check your vitals. I wake up each morning now and ask one question: what can I give today? Sometimes the answer is small: a smile, a reminder, a gentle correction, a touch on the arm that says, "I'm with you." The staff doesn't always understand why I do it, why I fold napkins a certain way, why I place a flower in the hallway vase even when no one notices. But I do it anyway, because ritual isn't about audience. It's about anchoring, and I will not drift. I am older now, tired, but I'm still building. Not monuments, not legacies, but echoes. And echoes, if carried right, become voices for others to follow. So yes, I regret much, but I also rejoice that even after everything lost, something sacred remained. I carry it with me, and I leave pieces of it behind, on paper, in gestures, in songs remembered, in tea shared, in walks taken, even when it's hard, especially then. This is not just a reflection. It's a message for you who still has time. Time to decide. Time to stay. Time to ask the right questions before this becomes your address. Because if someone had told me what I know now, not in a brochure, not in a checklist, but in truth, I might have chosen differently. So listen closely, because this isn't about fear. It's about clarity. You still get to choose. What kind of old you want to be? What kind of life you want to wake up to? How much of your soul you're willing to trade for convenience? And how much you're willing to fight for the parts of you that still burn? Aging isn't an enemy. Comfort isn't betrayal. But passivity, that's the thief. And it sneaks in through easy chairs and soft routines. Through that's just how it is. And maybe it's time to settle down. Through the quiet voice inside you that says, don't make trouble. Make trouble. Shake the system. Ask the hard questions before they become regrets. Who will decide when I wake? Who will set the rules for my privacy? Who will own my afternoons? Who will speak for me when I no longer speak loudly? Because I've learned this. Comfort without choice is not peace. It is sedation. It numbs. It quiets. It flattens. And you, my dear, are not meant to be flat. You're still meant to be full of stories, of preferences, of resistance, of surprises. There are homes out there, better ones, maybe. There are systems trying to change. But the biggest shift? It starts with awareness, with naming what matters. So name it now. Write it down. Put it somewhere people will see. This is what I need to remain myself. For me, it's the right to refuse help when I don't want it. The right to be messy. The right to be alone sometimes. The right to light a candle, even if only in memory. The right to leave a mark, no matter how small. What are yours? Because once you move in, it gets harder to claim them. Not impossible, but harder. And it shouldn't take regret to teach us that. Tell your family. Tell your doctor. Tell your future caregiver. Make your voice louder now so it doesn't get drowned out later. If I could go back, I wouldn't have chosen based on brochures. I would have asked to stay one night first. I would have visited alone, unannounced. I would have asked the residents to tell me the truth, not the painted version, the lived one. That's what this is. My lived truth, told slowly, gently, and with every ounce of honesty I can give. Because maybe, just maybe, it will keep one person from feeling what I felt. Maybe it will give you the courage to ask the next question, to push once more, to keep your own pen in your hand a little longer. Because once someone else holds it, they start writing your story. And you, bright, stubborn, beautiful you, deserve to write all the way to the end. I'll leave you with this. A few truths that remain even here in this quiet room. 1. You are still becoming. Don't let anyone finish your sentence for you. 2. Your body is yours, no matter how many pills they count or how often they knock. 3. You have the right to decide what dignity looks like for you. 4. Hope is not a privilege. It's a discipline. Practice it. 5. And freedom, even if it becomes small, is still freedom. Don't give it up easily. I sit here now, sunlight falling through a narrow window. I hear someone laughing down the hall. I hear footsteps that aren't mine. But my story is still being written. One breath, one memory, one question at a time. And so is yours. So ask it now, while you still have time. What do I want to remember about how I lived? What do I want the last chapter to sound like? Who do I want to be when the world tries to make me quiet? Because this voice, this one you're hearing now, it's not just mine. It's yours, echoing forward from a place I hope you'll never need to stand in. But if you do, may you stand with your spine straight, your voice sure, and your story still yours. I think often about legacy, not the kind that makes headlines, the kind that lives quietly in the way someone remembers your laugh, or your firm belief that tea should be brewed exactly 5 minutes, not more, not less. Legacy is the echo of how we made people feel, especially when we thought no one was watching. One night last week, I stayed up late reading an old letter I wrote to my younger self. I had forgotten it existed. It said, "Don't lose your softness, not even in the face of systems." I wept when I read that line, because I hadn't lost it, just misplaced it, covered it with layers of routine and resignation. But here I am, soft still, strong in ways only the weather can be. To those who feel afraid of what's coming, don't be afraid of aging. Be afraid of vanishing without having ever been fully seen. That's the greater loss. Speak up, even if your voice shakes, even if they label you difficult. Speak anyway, because that resistance, however small, is a seed, and others will notice it grow. If you are young now, and someone in your life is growing old, be their witness, not just to their frailty, but to their fire. Ask them what they miss. Ask them what they still want. Ask them what dignity means to them. Then help them guard it like treasure. The world moves fast. It will forget us if we don't keep insisting that we are still here, still learning, still worthy of more than survival. I leave this story behind like a lantern, hung low within reach, for anyone walking a dim corridor in their own life, unsure which way to turn. May it light something in you. May it remind you that aging is not disappearance. It's arrival, the arrival of truth, of essence, of final clarity. I am Margaret. I am still writing, still remembering, still resisting, still becoming. And so are you.